Hello, Saints Nation. As you've probably heard by now, Seaside Events and the New Orleans Saints have come together to plan the official Saints Legends fan cruise aboard the amazing Norwegian getaway sailing out of New Orleans, Louisiana in April of 2025. I'm Nick Valinchak, and I can't wait to sail away with you on this inaugural Saints Legends fan cruise. This journey promises fun, adventure, and plenty of football, I'm sure, too. For more information, visit saintslegendscruise.com and let's gear up to paint the seas black and gold. And today, I am joined by Super Bowl 44 champion and a man that has the highest kickoff return average for the New Orleans Saints in history, 25.6 yards. That's a quarter of a football field, so that's pretty good. Mr. Courtney Roby, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Nick? I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely. Thankful for you to jump on today and talk a little bit about your time with the Saints and the cruise we got coming up. So let's not waste any time. You played with the Saints for, I'd say, probably the majority of your career. Looks like 5 of the 8 years you were in the NFL. What was it like? New Orleans, especially around that time, I feel like coming off Katrina era, and it was one of the more. It was an innovator of sorts as well, too, with like the prolific passing offenses that we see nowadays. It was really starting back then in New Orleans. What are your memories of your time in New Orleans in that era?
Like when I came to New Orleans, like I had already played for, so I got drafted by Tennessee. So, I played there for 2 years. And actually I came back home and played for the Colts for a little while. And then, once I was released there, then that's when, New Orleans picked me up. And so, I really didn't know much about New Orleans because I had never been. The furthest south that I've been was Nashville, back when I played, for Tennessee. So I didn't really know what to expect. Really everything that I had heard about New Orleans, was, the devastation of Katrina and, kind of, the rebuilding the city and stuff like that. So, like I said, I really didn't know what to expect. But, like as soon as I got down there, man, like it literally was like an eye-opening experience because, the fans were just so passionate. It was a passionate feel, but also like a family atmosphere type of thing. And still like even to this day, when people ask, what team do I root for the most, or what team sticks the most, or whatever the case may be, because even after New Orleans, I played for another team, and I won't mention them, but um but but yeah, even after New Orleans, I played for a different team, and still to this day, I'm like, New Orleans, the Saints is really the only team that I keep up with, and I think that has a lot to do with the family atmosphere, how the fans root for us, and just how energetic everybody is. One of the things that we did, when I did play there is, we made it a point to make sure that, we felt, everybody that was in those stands, every time that we took the field, so every time we were on the field, the fans were with us.
Yeah, I know you kind of dipped, ducked, dived, and dodged around the other team that you played for after the Saints. How I gotta ask, how is that kind of like shifting from a division rival? Like I feel like that has to be a really difficult transition, especially if you've played. I mean, okay, like it's a transactional business. You're there based
Right.
on your contract, but at the same time, like you build this, rapport with the city and you like the city. What happens? How does it feel when you go to like one of their arch nemesis?
It's odd. It's really odd, to be quite honest, because like you said, you kind of build up, and I'm gonna be less politically correct. Like you build up this hate for the city,
Mm-hmm.
and so now, like when you kind of you transition over, and like you said, I mean, it is a business. You know what I'm saying? So like it's all transactional. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you kind of have to find a way to kind of put your feelings aside, and now everything that you put towards on that football field, goes towards this organization. But like it's weird. It's really weird, and some of the the other teammates that have done that as well. I had conversations with them, after everything was over, and they basically said the same thing. Like it's tough. It's tough. A lot of times you still feel a little hate coming from some of the other teammates that you've had. well, the current teammates that you had on that team now, but the teammates that y'all played against, and so that was kind of weird to kind of work through. But if you're a business minded individual, which you take pride in your craft, on that field and whatnot, you just find a way to make it work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think another important question, too, is if you had advice to someone coming to New Orleans for the first time on food, what would it be?
Oh wow. Um, my number one is the charbroiled oysters, like hands down. So like even if I have family or people who I know who are going to visit New Orleans, I mean I always tell them to either go to Drago's or Acme. Those are my two spots. They were my spots when I was there, and definitely get the charbroiled oysters. So that to me is number one.
I think we're going to make the trek down from Ohio to see one of the Saints games this year. So I'm going to
Okay.
have to check those places out when
Yeah.
we get there for sure.
Got
I've
yes.
as hard as it is to believe, you don't get like fresh seafood in Northeast Ohio, right? Like it's not a thing like it is in the bayou. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Speaking of kind of like looking forward to things, when you got the schedule release or you got off of a game Sunday and you looked forward to the next week, was there a player in specific that or players that you saw that you were going to be playing that really made you up your game? Like you saw them on the schedule and you're like, okay, I got to get up for that one, either because they made you elevate your talent to another level, or you just had one of those want to knock them on their butt type situations.
Yeah, I mean, not only players but teams as well. Because when you play in this league long enough, you kind of have remembrance of past years of where whether it's a certain play or like you said a player or whatever the case may be, whether it didn't go your way or it's like, all right, well, you know what, I'll see you next year type of thing, and especially within the division. But also the kind of unique thing about me is that not only did I play receiver, but I was a returner, but also I was on the punt team and the kickoff team too. So it was kind of like that offense and defensive minded mix, so to speak. So there were several returners that I like to base my game off of, or against, I should say. During that time, Devin Hester, obviously, he's going into the Hall of Fame. What this year, or he got
I think he is going in this year, yeah.
yeah. So he's obviously the greatest returner of all time, arguably, but on paper, like you can't deny that. So I was always trying to see what he did. Percy Harvin was another one. Um, so like there were a lot of returners that I would try to make sure, okay, well, you know what, in this game, they got X amount of yardage on their returns. All right, well, let me see if I can up that a little bit. Just to stay in that conversation and make sure that I'm providing for my team what they provided for theirs in that spark. So
Yeah, in that time period, I think those are the two that kind of really jump out. Josh Cribbs, I think, is kind of in and around there too. Courtney Roby got to be in the
yeah,
conversation. I mean, can't insult the man on his own call. Um,
I agree.
but you played, like I said, at a very interesting time in the Saints' history. We talked to some of the real old heads like Van Jakes and Brett Maxey and the guys who were around and able to say, "Hey, this is I was in New Orleans and I was on the field when we clinched the first winning season," and that's a
Right.
huge that's something that you could tell the joy in their voice. You could hear it. You could see it on their face, being able to talk about it. You kind of get to take the next step forward of what they kind of maybe laid the foundation in building to get the team to the Super Bowl and ultimately win it. So is there something that really sticks out to you about that time period, like from the start of the season to winning the Super Bowl, that will really always stick out for you in terms of your Saints memories?
Yeah. So and I mean, it still carries on to this day. And actually, I'm sitting in my office right now, and I got a bunch of my game balls and stuff like that. And if we have time after, I would definitely like to kind of show you that stuff. But
Mm.
just like one of the things that I have in my trophy case right now is the letter that Sean had given us before the season had even started. And so like before the season even began, before we went to camp, um, before OTAs or whatever the case may be, like he would always send out a letter. But this year it was just something about the letter that was different. You can kind of sense of how we were going into camp, like we had a team that really gelled. Everybody knew their role. Everybody played their role to the utmost of their ability. And quite honestly, it was just a different feel in that building. And like we knew we were good. And every team politically can say, all right, well, we're a good team. But like you just got a sense that year is like, all right, well, you know what, like we're a great team who can really do something this year. And so it was just a different feel. But we had past players come in. Sean would bring past players to come in and talk to us every single week. And like all-time greats would come in who didn't even play for for the Saints during that time, but had a connection to either Sean or Joe Vitt, who was the linebackers coach that year. But I mean, that year we had Ronnie Lott come in and talk to us, give us some knowledge. Sean Dawkins came in and talked to us. Like these are all-time greats. So it's like for them to come in and kind of breathe life into our team. They sensed it as well. Like it was just different. We had movie stars come out at our practice to watch. Like it was just a weird but a great feeling that year. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I can't imagine, and I go through this like around this time every year because I'm an avid fantasy footballer and have been for practically my whole life. And I always and a huge college football fan, honestly, probably more so than the pros. And I always start to tell like I have this conversation with myself when trying to evaluate talent in situations that you know there's only a small percentage of people that play football in high school that make it to college.
Right.
There's an even smaller percentage of that actually play in college on anything meaningful. And then
Right.
there's an even smaller percentage of that for people who make it into the NFL. And then at the end of the day, you start to get into the really small pockets of players that have won a Super Bowl, Hall of Famers, record holders. So it has to be a really unique feeling to kind of be in an elite class. I think we're probably into the 50s in Super Bowls now, maybe 60s. I'm not entirely sure on that, but still, it's a very small amount of people in total versus who has played in the NFL over the history of its existence, and it's got to be an awesome feeling. Now, going along with that, though, I wonder what would your advice be for some of the current Saints who are younger on the younger side and haven't got to experience that same type of progression? What would you tell them?
Just keep your head down and work. It's a performance based league, but it's also a league that you know takes takes care of their players in the sense of as long as you're producing on the field, like your time is going to come. And so you know everybody who comes into the league, like everybody has the goal of winning the Super Bowl or going to the Super Bowl, or but it's tough. It's tough. And even when you feel as though like you have the best team on paper, or um you know in everybody else's opinion, um you still got to go out and perform on Sundays. And I think about the 2011 team that we had. And quite honestly, I feel like our 2011 team was better than our 2009, 2010 team. Like, and you couldn't have told us in 2011 like we weren't going to the Super Bowl. And I believe I believe the Giants won that year, if I'm not mistaken. But we played them earlier in the season. We blew them out by 30, 40 points. You know what I'm saying? But again, like it's any given Sunday. We didn't do what needed to be done against San Francisco. And that game still haunts me to this day. It does, because like that was uncharacteristic of how we played. But again, we didn't handle our business, so we didn't make it to the Super Bowl. So it's like, you have to go out every single Sunday, work, and just, work hard for your goals, but it's a team sport first and foremost. But you also got to understand that within that team sport, you're working, for your brother who's beside you. And as long as y'all collectively work as one, then that's how you get the, the wins and get the results you're looking for.
Think you made like a really salient point too, where you said any given Sunday, and it's a theme that is tossed around like very often with very little context. It's just like, oh, it's unpredictable. But you're sitting here saying, I played for a Super Bowl team. I know what it's like to win a Super Bowl. We knew that 2 years after we won the Super Bowl, we knew that team was better. There was no questions about it. Things were gelling better, but the margin of talent is so thin from
Yep.
the best to the least best player in the NFL that it could just be a few snaps gone awry and the whole situation, especially as you get further on in the year. I mean, especially once the playoffs hit, you have to be basically flawless in your mechanics because one little thing stops you from moving on to the next week. So I can't imagine what kind of stress does that put on you, especially after you have like, okay, we've won. We already have one in the bag and we want to add more and we know we can. What kind of added stress is that to you when you're trying to like go out there and was it easier, I guess, to kind of go after the first one because that same kind of weight isn't there? And then the second time you kind of question things more, is that kind of what happens? Or what's your intake on that?
I feel like it was more difficult the first time around because we didn't know what to expect, you know. And as the years, progressed, I mean, we won 13 straight games before we had even lost.
Mm.
And so, we finished 13-3 that year. But, I mean, there were certain games, that year, one that sticks out in my mind was when we played Washington. Um, we played Washington, and quite honestly, like they were, one of the bottom teams, and we went to Washington, and we got their best shot. And it took, spectacular plays down the stretch. Drew made a ton of spectacular plays, as he always does. But, one of the ones that sticks out in my mind was when, unfortunately, Drew threw an interception. Robert Meacham races down the defender who thinks he's about to score and then strips the ball away from him, and Robert scores. So it's like, it's those type of plays, and it kind of goes back to, making sure that you're playing for your brother type of situation. You know what I'm saying? Because he easily could have just given up. And it's like, all right, well, you know what? They scored. All right, now, offense back on there, and now we have to try to score. But, again, it was just a weird year. So like things were just kind of bouncing our way. You know what I'm saying? So I think it was kind of more difficult that year because we didn't know what to expect, but we were also getting everybody's best punch, later on down the year. But as crazy as it sounds, like it was almost relieving, that we finally lost, you know what I'm saying, towards the end of the year, because it's like, all right, well, you know what, we don't have to carry on this perfect season almost. And so, and it was obviously better to get those losses out in the regular season than before the playoffs start and stuff like that. But no, but I feel like, that year was definitely tougher because it was kind of uncharted territory. 2011, it was kind of like, all right, well, like we almost knew that we were good. And so, it was kind of like, you look at the roster that we had in that 2011 season, and it's like, there's no way that anybody's going to beat us. You know what I'm saying? And, again, we just didn't handle business. So it was tough.
So in 2024, what is Courtney Roby up to these days?
Man, Courtney Roby is just 100% dad, and just taking care of my family. That's it. My daughters are in travel league sports, so that literally chews up all my time. We're in and out of state. 99% of the time during the summer. My oldest is in travel volleyball. My youngest is in travel basketball. So two totally opposite sports. but I have to try to find a way as dad. And, my wife, like we divide and conquer, type of thing. So there's plenty of times when, I'm in one state and she's in another, and we got to, travel them around. So that's all that I'm doing now, man. Just taking care of the family and just trying to, you know, see them through. You know what I'm saying? And whatever goals that they have, just trying to nourish that and, get them to where they need to be.
Well, I know for me, that's been the best part of life. I wasn't a football player. I'm not a Super Bowl champion, so I don't have those necessarily those accolades. I have different accolades, not as present as an NFL player might, but I definitely feel like being a father is like the best thing, and it's testing, right? It's always testing because you're trying to lead people who may not want to listen, and especially
Yep.
when they start hitting certain ages, they know more than you do.
Yep.
And I remember being in those shoes, right? I remember being a teenager and I knew more than dad. And then one day it hit me. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know more than my dad did. But I do have some good news for you. And that
Mhm.
good news is you will be coming on the 2025 Saints Legends Fan Cruise. And I mean, you already knew this. It's no
Sir.
surprise to you. Just wanted to build up a little bit of excitement. It's going to be a good time.
Sir.
Are you a crew? Have you been on cruises before? Have you done that a lot?
I have. I have. They're exciting times. So this will be my first cruise where it's been, the journey of 7 days. Like I've never
Mm.
been this long. But definitely looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it. Cruises are always fun. It's an intimate setting where you're able to meet a lot of fans and you know a lot of walks of life. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's the exciting thing, and to be able to go to these different ports and get off on those ports and kind of venture off into those areas. Like it's gonna be dope.
We're going to Costa Maya, Harvest Cay, Roatan, and Cozumel. Have you been to any of those that you remember offhand?
Been to Cozumel. Cozumel's nice. Cozumel,
Okay.
yeah. Been to, I believe it's called Paradise Beach there.
Okay.
Uh, so been there, quite a few times. So, normally when we cruise, I mean that's kind of where we go, and I mean that's kind of our comfort zone, so to speak. So, yeah, it's a nice time there. So yeah, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some of these other ports and seeing how they how they are.
I mean, we've got a lot of stuff planned. We're going to have beach parties. We're going to have coming and going parties on the ship. We'll have dinner with the legends. We'll have interview sessions, question and answer sessions. Is there anything? I know we got a lot of guys. In our call we did with the legends, several of them expressed an interest in playing golf. Is there anything that you are specifically looking forward to doing on the cruise?
I kind of second that. Golf is kind of, even though I'm not good at it, I will be the first to admit, I like that is one sport that I have not been able to master, and it's a humbling sport, probably the most humbling sport I've ever played, but that's what keeps me coming back. So it's like that competitive nature in me is like, all right, well, you know what, you got me this time. I'm gonna see you next week, type of thing. But I've only golfed one time. I want to say it was St. Kitts. So that is the only time that I've golfed outside the country. Um, and so with that being in the Caribbean island, so that was the only time that I've golfed. Everywhere else has kind of been in the U.S. So I'm kind of anxious to kind of see what else is out there. With that being the
Well, if you needed anyone to advocate the difficulty of golf, I could tell you all you have to do is look at the open leaderboard right now and the names way down at the bottom who have shot 7, 8, 9 over par today. It's the greatest names in golf sitting there at the bottom of the leaderboard. So I think it's
Yep.
going to be a good time. We have a lot of opportunities for fans. Like you used the word intimacy. I think that's the biggest thing with this. It really gives the fans an opportunity to see angles of the sport that really they have probably not heard that often. The
Right.
stories about what it was like when the Super Bowl was closing out and you're coming to the realization that, okay, I'm going to be a Super Bowl champ, that how it felt for the other guys when they were about to clinch the first winning season, what it was like on the field in the locker room. I think those are all things that fans will have a great opportunity to experience with the legends.
For
If you
sure.
were going to send one final message to Saints fans to encourage them to get on the cruise, what would that be?
Um, I think the biggest thing is for the fans to take the opportunity to come to the cruise, just interact with us, and knowing that we're people like them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they see us on Sundays, and a lot of times they put us on this pedestal because of the report that we have on the field, or what we've done for the organization and stuff like that. But to really see us, intimately up close, and be able to have just general conversation with us, and just realizing that we're individuals just like them. We have families. We have everything that you know that they have, as far as the opportunities, and just knowing that again, we live and we breathe just like them. So come on a cruise. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to just carry on conversations with us, and just get to know us. Besides the person that you see on the field. So that's what I'm more anxious and looking forward to being able to do, is to really see some of these fans, and just being able to just carry on a general conversation with them, and just knowing that okay, Courtney's cool. You know what I'm saying? So, that's it.
All right, well, that's great. I'm
Yeah.
excited, and I want to thank you again for jumping on this call. Before we leave, do you want to let fans know where they can follow you on social media?
Well, I'm not on any social media. I'm one
Okay,
of the
well, that's good.
yeah, you're one of the few guys that social media for me is not it's crazy out here. So
Not going to
so,
disagree with you there for sure. In the
so
meantime, you can check us out online. We're on Instagram. Check us out at Saints Legends Fan Cruise, and check us out online. Order your tickets to the inaugural Saints Legends Fan Cruise at saintslegendscruise.com, and we will see you again soon.